same mistakes I did. Over my decades of visiting Disney World, I have made a fair few missteps and I have learned from my mistakes. So today I'm going to let you know the 9 things that I would not do at Disney World again so that you can learn and not fall into the same traps that I did and instead just have the most amazing Disney World trip. Some of these may be controversial and I would love to hear your takes, so do let me know in the comments and stick around until the end to hear my most controversial Disney World take. Mistake number 1. Only eating in quick service locations. When you're in Disney World, it is super easy to want to just pack in as much as possible. So quick service dining seems like the perfect solution. This way you can get in and out quickly and you're not having to take a lot of time out of your day. However, a lot of the quick service food can be quite similar and over the course of 2 weeks, it gets very, very samey and by the end you can be screaming out for some vegetables because a lot of it is fast food. So don't fall into this trap. What I would always recommend is have a look at the menus in advance. This way you can find out the restaurants that serve the food you want to eat and also look up some reviews so you can find out where the best quick service dining can be found. I have done a video all about the best quick service locations that don't sell boring fast food. So if you are looking for more interesting cuisine but you do want to eat at quick service locations, do check that video out. It is super easy when you suddenly get hungry to just walk into the first quick service location you find. However, this is not necessarily where the good food is, so don't do this. Do your research ahead of time. And now I absolutely love incorporating table service meals into my trip. This is for a few reasons. 1, there are loads of amazing themed restaurants serving lots of different cuisine and they're really, really good. I also find it a really good time to take a break. Having a table service meal does take longer than a quick service meal, but in Disney World you do need time to rest your feet and be in the air conditioning. So this is the perfect time to do it. Now, table service meals are more expensive, however there are ways to do them cheaper. For example, breakfasts are always going to be the cheapest meal of the day, and if you do something like a buffet or a family style meal, you will pay one set price and you can eat as much as you like. So this could be a really good way to keep the costs down. One of the most Disney things you can do whilst visiting Disney World is a character dining meal, and this is a really fantastic way to meet multiple characters at once, and this will help you save time queuing in the day, and they are really fantastic experiences. So I'd highly recommend this, and if you did want to do a more affordable option, then definitely do breakfast because these are the cheapest way to do character dining meals. Plus, don't skip over the resorts. Some of the best restaurants will be found in the Disney World hotels. A lot of them can be reached really quickly by free Disney transport, so don't skip these because you could be missing out on amazing food. Mistake number 2 is focusing only on rides. When I was younger in particular, I was like going into Disney with blinders on. I did not care about anything apart from the rides. Get off one ride, get in a queue, and that's all I cared about. And I ended up missing out on so much. Disney World is fantastic because not only do you have amazing rides, you also have attractions, shows, character meets, and then entertainment around the parks. And I missed out on so much. Now when I visit, I make sure to do a bit of everything, and this is great for a number of reasons. 1, you're getting the full Disney World experience, but 2, you're also getting a nice pace throughout your day. You do need to have some thrill moments, but then some calm moments, some times to be in queues, and then some times to be resting your feet. So incorporating shows, entertainment, and just soaking up the atmosphere in the parks is a really good way to help you have an amazing mixture of things throughout your day to create that flow. Something else I love to do at Disney World now is the backstage tours and special experiences. These add so much to your trip and they're really unique, and I hadn't even considered these before. I wouldn't have even looked them up, and now I try to do one every single trip. Plus, they don't have to break the bank. Backstage tours start from just $30. Or you could do something really cool, which I've done before, is go to Harmony Barbershop on Main Street and have your hair cut. And it costs just over $20. So you don't have to break the bank to do something unique and special. Do check out these special tours and experiences because they really do add so much to your trip. Mistake number 3 was going on rides I didn't enjoy. I think this is a trap a lot of people fall into, that when you go to Disney World, you have to go on absolutely everything. Even if there are rides that make you feel sick, or you're scared of, or you just do not enjoy. And now I've stopped doing that, and it is so liberating. The great thing about Disney World is there's so much to see and do. If you do skip over a few things, you're really not missing out. As someone who suffers from motion sickness, before I would try and push through, but now I know there are certain rides that if I go on it, no matter what I do, whether I take my motion sickness tablets, I wear my Emmy-term bracelet, anything, I'm still going to feel ill. So I simply skip over them. To me, I want to be able to have the most amazing time, and that includes feeling good the whole trip. So if it means skipping over a handful of rides, then so be it, because I'm going to have a much better experience for it. If you are finding these tips helpful, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Currently, 60% of people watching aren't subscribed, which means they're missing out on tons of helpful tips that will make their trip more magical. So don't fall into that trap, subscribe today. Mistake number 4 is not taking breaks. I used to believe you just had to pack as much into your trips as possible, and every single day I would end up leaving in absolute agony and in a bad mood. There was definitely no magic left. And a few years ago I started having a problem with my foot, which forced me to start taking afternoon breaks, and it revolutionised my trips. And it's kind of a blessing in disguise. Didn't love having the foot problem, but I now have much better trips because of it. Having the afternoon break gives you a chance to rest your body, recharge, and then go back out with much more energy. Ironically, I now fit so much more into my days just because I have so much more energy and I feel so much better. And when you're not in absolute agony and your mood is low, you're having a much better experience. It might feel counterproductive to take a break and leave the parks because it's like, well, how can I fit more in if I'm actually out of the park? But believe me, it does work. So if you are staying on site or you have a hire car and you can get quickly back to your accommodation, then this is an absolute must. Believe me, it's going to change the way you visit. Mistake number 5 is staying off site. When I started going to Orlando with my family, we always used to stay off site. This way we could go to whatever attractions we wanted to, and that worked for us. However, once I stayed on site at Disney World, I realised there is such a massive difference and I just can't go back to staying off site anymore. Staying off-site can add a lot of time onto your day, going to and from the parks. Now, some hotels will offer shuttles, however, be careful before booking. A lot of hotels will only do 2 or 3 shuttles a day, often at inconvenient times. So you end up not using them and having to pay out for Ubers or Lyfts, and it adds a lot of money onto the top of the cost of your trip. Plus, there are those hidden fees. A lot of hotels will charge resort fees that include using the gym and the internet, and even if you don't use those things, you're going to be paying per night resort fees, and again, that can add up quickly over the cost of your trip. And if you are hiring a car because you're staying off-site and you want to be able to get to the parks nice and quickly and be on your own schedule, then be aware of parking costs. Many hotels will charge you to park there per night, and of course the parks charge you a lot for parking. Disney World is $30 a day and Universal is $36 a day, which over the course of your trip becomes extortionate. One of the downsides for me as well is it's not so easy to take that afternoon break. If you do have a car, it is a bit easier, but it still takes time. However, if you are using other forms of transport like shuttles or even Ubers and Lyft, it can become very expensive and very time consuming. So then you are kind of forced to stay in the parks all day long, and then you could succumb to that kind of tiredness, that irritability, and it's no fun. So because of this, I like to stay on site at Disney World, and then you also get the benefit of being in the Disney bubble, and there really is a feeling in the air which I absolutely love. So for me, it's a non-negotiable. I've got to stay on site. If you are heading to Disney World, be sure to check out my Disney trip planning services. Here I can book your Disney World dining reservations for you. We can have an online call so I can answer all of your burning questions and give you tips tailored specifically to how you're going to be visiting. And I have a concierge service where I will plan out every part of your trip for you, including creating a bespoke itinerary. So do head to my website and check that out. Mistake number 6, not hiring a car. Now, this is one that a lot of people talk about. Is it even worth having a car at Disney World? And for me, it is a yes. Even though I stay on site, being able to be on my own schedule is incredible. It is fantastic if you stay at a Disney resort that you do get the free Disney transport. However, sometimes the queue for this can be very, very long. It can take a while to get from the parks to the resorts, and it just takes a lot of time out. However, when you hire a car, it takes about 15 minutes to get anywhere on site, and it's also fantastic if you want to visit anywhere else in Orlando. For me, being able to save time and to be able to save my foot by not standing around waiting for a bus or other forms of transport helps massively, and I just can't visit without a car now. And as we heard earlier, one of my mistakes was not having the afternoon break, so having a car makes it much easier. As I say, getting from a park to my hotel takes me just 15 minutes. However, if I was using Disney transportation, that would be more like 45 minutes to an hour each way. So a 2-hour round trip for an afternoon break does take a lot of time out of the day, so the car for me is essential. What I would also say is, if you're going to be going to a lot of other places in Orlando, maybe different attractions, the malls, Target, and to and from the airport, then a hire car might actually work at the same price or even cheaper than getting Ubers or Lyft. So it doesn't have to be unaffordable. And if you are staying at a Disney World resort, you do get free parking at your hotel and in the parks, which is incredible. Bonus! I'm going to tell you a little mistake I used to make and how I've corrected it, and that was just drinking water. I used to think it's super hot, so I'll drink water and that'll make me feel good. And of course, you absolutely need to stay hydrated. But I would still end up feeling sluggish, have headaches, and didn't feel my best until I started drinking electrolytes. They are a game changer. You can either have the little sachets with the powder that you add into water yourself, or you can buy drinks like Powerade or Gatorade, and believe me, the difference is huge. Electrolytes do make you feel so much better than just water on its own, so be sure to get some. Mistake number 7, having unrealistic expectations. When you visit Disney World, you want to get as much out of your trip as possible, but sometimes this can lead to having your expectations way too high. I now think it's always good to think of what are my priorities for this trip and make sure you do them, and then everything else is a bonus. If you're trying to squeeze absolutely everything into one trip, often you end up overtired and in agony, and it's not worthwhile, particularly if you're visiting multiple places in Orlando, not just Disney World. It's also really easy to have unrealistic expectations of things that are out of your control. For example, the weather or the people that are visiting. Unfortunately, you have no control over them, and sometimes when you have been saving and dreaming about going to Disney World for so long, in your mind you create a perfect vision, and sometimes that doesn't always happen. But if this does happen, then it's best to try and let it roll over you and just wash away, because there's not anything you can do about it, but you can make the most of a situation. If it does happen to rain, there's loads of things you can do. Pop on a poncho, throw up an umbrella, or go on a ride so that you can skip out of that rain. Typically it won't last very long, so you can carry on enjoying your day. And if you meet people that are a bit grouchy, know at least you aren't them and you are having a great time, so don't worry about them. And although Disney World is magical, sometimes things will happen, such as rides break down or there'll be closures during your trip, and these things are super disappointing, but again, they're out of your control. So try and make the best out of what you have. If there are temporary closures, they typically will come up quite quickly. You won't have to wait long to get to enjoy things again. And if your favourite ride happens to be closed during your trip, it is awful, but believe me, no one does a once in a lifetime trip to Disney World. You will be back. I have had experiences before where things haven't gone quite to plan. If you've seen my 2022 vlog series, you will know I went to Savi's workshop where you get to build your own custom lightsaber, and I was so excited for this, and the experience was fantastic until the very end. Unfortunately, there was a huge thunderstorm happening during my time in Savi's workshop, and at the end they just thrust you out into it. There was no time to put the saber away, my camera, my belongings, everything got absolutely soaked, and it really took away from the magic, because instead of it feeling like this amazing immersive experience like it should have, it felt like a cash grab. It was like, okay, gotta get them out, we've got the next people in, and that was really, really sad. However, it was one moment during the trip, so it's fine to feel disappointed for a bit. I totally did, but the next day I was like, it's a new day, we move on, and it was still a great experience. and I didn't let it ruin the rest of the trip. So it's important to try and keep that in mind, because things will happen, but if you can move on, it doesn't have to ruin your entire trip. Mistake number 8, trying to do park open till park close. This is something a lot of people will do when they visit Disney World. Get there for when the park opens and stay all day long. And this is so that you can try and fit as much in as possible and get the most out of your trip. However, the parks are open for very, very long. Typically somewhere like Magic Kingdom will be open from 9 AM until 9 or 10 PM. And if you're staying at a resort, you can actually enter from 8:30 in the morning. So that is a very, very long day. And don't forget, in that day, it's going to be boiling hot. You're going to walk miles upon miles, and when you're not walking, you are standing. So doing park open to park close, I used to have an awful time. I cannot overstate this enough. Every single day ended up being awful. It used to take me hours upon hours to get to sleep because my feet were throbbing, my back was killing me, and then I was in a bad mood. So if you're traveling with other people, inevitably we would start bickering, and you'd get back to your room, nobody's talking, everyone's in agony, and you can't fall asleep because you're in pain, and it was dreadful. Now, it might be possible to do a couple of days of your trip that are super hardcore and you do park open to park close. However, I would definitely recommend not doing it every single day of your trip, because you are not going to enjoy yourself. There is nothing worse than being in pain or in a bad mood at Disney, and then you go away with not magical memories. So I would highly recommend doing that afternoon break at your hotel. However, if you don't want to leave the park, then you could do something like a table service meal, so you have that little sit down in the AC and a meal, or you could go and see a show. There are things that you can do so that you get that nice pace throughout your day and you're giving your body a break. But remember, because the parks are open so long, it is totally possible to do an afternoon break and you will come back feeling much more refreshed, much happier, and just have the best experience. It's also worth mentioning that with park open, if it opens at 8:30 in the morning, that is the time that the rides will start operating. The park will actually open a little bit before so that you can get to the lands, to the rides. So you would be getting up super early every single day of your trip. And this isn't always desirable when you are on holiday. Now, I would say the first couple of days, if you are coming from overseas, then jet lag is your superpower. So going for rope drop and park opening then is fantastic. However, later in your trip, you might want to have some later days where you stay out much later in the evening, and then the next morning you don't get up at the crack of dawn. And that could be a really good way to have a nice balance of your trip, so you're getting to experience both the quiet mornings and the completely different atmosphere and the amazing nighttime entertainment in the evenings. Mistake number 9, not buying multi-pass. Now, this is probably the most controversial thing I'm going to say in this video, because people are typically firmly in one of two camps. Either they will always get multi-pass, or they will never pay for it because they've already paid for an entry ticket. Now, I would say I have done both, and multi-pass has improved my trips significantly. Being able to cut down queue times massively is fantastic because it means you fit more into your day and you also save your feet. Nobody likes being in queues for hours on end, and there's nothing worse than standing in a queue for an hour, going on a 2-minute ride and then skipping into a 50-minute queue, doing a 3-minute ride, then a 75-minute queue. You end up queuing all day long and it's a nightmare. However, with multi-pass, I've typically always queued between 5 and maybe 15 minutes. The queue time is significantly reduced and it just makes the day so much more enjoyable. However, I would say the parks that benefit the most from multi-pass are Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios. So if you don't want to pay for multi-pass for all of the parks, definitely do it in those two. They have the most amount of rides on offer and the rides that get the longest queue times. So you can really maximise multi-pass and get so much done in one day. Now, I am lucky because I typically go solo, so I'm only paying for myself, so paying $30 for multi-pass isn't that big a deal. However, I do know if you are a family or a bigger group, that cost can add up massively. So again, you might just want to do 1 or 2 days of your trip, and I would totally recommend Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios to be your picks. I have done a video all about the best strategy to use multi-pass so you can get the most out of it. So do check that out if you are going to be buying it so that you get as many rides in one day. So those are the 9 mistakes that I've made at Disney World that I will never do again. I learnt the hard way, so I hope that you don't have to. Have you made any of these mistakes before? Or are there other mistakes that I've missed out? Do let me know in the comments, because we all love learning from each other. And if this video has helped you, make sure you give it a like, subscribe to my channel so that you can get more tips, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on a video. Thank you so much for watching this video, and until next time, I hope you have a most magical day. Bye bye.